What I've got, though, is something from an Estonian licensed financial institution. Yes, I go that deep in my research, called Wallester. To be honest, I didn't. It's written on the accounting web. But they did a really good prediction for 2026. And I really like what they put forward because it feels really tangible and really real. One thing that I guess is pretty straightforward is they've said that real-time finance becomes the expectation. And I think we're there. We've been there to some extent, but now it's with MTD for income tax, this is just the norm. If you're not looking at real-time finance as an accounting firm, as a business, you are way behind compared to where you should be. It is the expectation. One thing I thought was really interesting is they're talking about spend management becoming a strategic tool, something about that you're not looking just to manually do payments, but how are we automating a lot of this, making it controlled via spend limits, by modern tools, automating the processing of that so that it becomes advisory focused for accounting firms rather than compliance. So that transition away, and that's something we've talked a lot about in this pod, is that compliance is going to be eroded. How are we going to move towards advisory? And I think spend management is a critical area that's can be done. It puts that focus on outsourcing, and business process outsourcing in that mid-tier space is something that's a big growth area for a lot of firms at the moment. So I think this is a key area to look at in 2026 if you're an accounting firm. They talked about advisory services going beyond compliance, i.e. as compliance gets eroded. So we've talked about that a lot, won't dive into that in any more detail. Workflow automation is now critical. So how are we looking at integrated systems, transaction feeds? John obviously was referring to the fact that the US is so far behind with bank feeds. This is something that's critical now in the UK. And we talked at the end of 2025 about the fact that some of the finance systems really need to automate that bank check by looking at the bank accounts and verifying that the balance they've got in there is correct, or if not, flagging that. And that's something that I think is still a weakness in the bank reconciliation that we still see in accounting software. And then they've talked about integration is now the new differentiator. We're massive advocates for having a digital service in your accounting firm. And I think this becomes more and more critical because, as we said, cloud is the norm now. How do you differentiate and go beyond that? Digital is the way you can do that. And it goes into kind of feeding this business process outsourcing into that spend management as a strategic tool. And a critical thing you'll need to do to enable all of this is ensuring that data literacy is something you're training in a firm. So moving into deeper analytical skills, familiarity with interpreting and building dashboards and BI tools, and the ability to communicate effectively, telling a story. And this is all, I guess, the areas that have not been traditionally focused on in internal training inside accounting firms. And we need to move towards that as a profession to make sure we're ahead of the curve. So what they're flagged and the key things to look at, I think, are on point for 2026. It's not a tech thing, it's a process thing. It's something that we should talk more about as a profession as we move through the 2026 year.
Ah, there you go. He's very passionate about that. Yeah, don't I hear you, lassie? I hear you. And you know, Flinder really started this trend, actually. Very early on, they spoke about this, Luke and Alistair.
You know what? It's like the butterfly effect, right? They started something and it just grew and grew. So that's my loose connection to their butterfly logo there.
It's their fault, is what you're saying. The teams must have deeper analytical skills and familiarity with dashboards. God damn it. You love it.
I guess I have a question, though, is like this transition from cloud to digital, what does that really mean?
As in, John, I thought you'd know that, mate. As in most firms have put themselves out as a cloud accounting firm. So we work on Xero, we work on QuickBooks, we work on Sage Accounting, we work on Free Agent. Great. That's not a differentiator. That's the norm. So how do you put yourself out there as being so different at the same time as we go back a number of years when people went, I'm a Xero firm, and that was a differentiator. They won clients, is that you need to focus mostly now on being digital. How do you go beyond the finance system, operational systems, reporting systems, spend management? We're going beyond just we work on a cloud real-time finance. That's the expectation. Now going on to the differentiator, the exception now is how do we build that into a much more rounded advisory process in digital? So digital transformation, digital delivery, and real-time processing of the client's finances through your outsourcing team.